Good morning, everyone. How's it going out there? Welcome back here to a Monday morning, 10:11 a.m. That's California time here, November 10th, 2025. Latest activity here on the globe shows a 3.2 earthquake. Let's see, hide now here somewhere in the red flag. Looks like across the region north of Turkey. Also, some movement there into California once again with a 2.6 coming into the San Francisco Bay Area right now. That earthquake is a part of an ongoing swarm. It looks like they have positioned it pretty close there to either the northern end of the Calaveras Fault or even potentially on the Pleasanton Fault here, which hasn't really seen any larger earthquake activity historically. It's normally some smaller quakes. I was reading up on it a little bit. But the Calaveras Fault obviously capable of producing some big quakes, and the Hayward Fault as well. Interesting swarm nonetheless. Let's get a total tally on that and see what we got here. Since yesterday, we had about 48 earthquakes here, including that 3.8 that struck yesterday morning near San Ramon. The original quake there being felt over the Bay Area. Since then, we've seen a number of back-to-back aftershocks, some up even into the 3 range. This reminds me a lot of like some foreshock activity previous to any big movement, towards a big earthquake that's about ready to take place. A number of 3s, and of course there's the latest 2.6. No migration that I can see. The level below the surface looks fairly consistent, except for this one, a little bit more shallower. That coming in this morning as a 1.5. So even after midnight here, we've got 4 earthquakes with the latest. They're the largest since midnight. 3.8 being the largest so far in this sequence of events. Definitely some scattered activity out here around the Bay Area. You can see it pretty much encircling a number of faults, even up here around the Hayward Fault. Got a 1.8 earthquake on it this morning, about 7 o'clock or so. Some further activity over here on the Greenville Fault and a number of other faults out here. This is just a sign here of increasing strain and stress out in this area. Number of faults. Watch the ones that have not been, for one, very active, such as the Pleasanton Fault, but also the ones that are capable of producing some big earthquake activity, and that has passed the historical reoccurrence intervals, such as the Hayward Fault here. That is coming up. I think out of the majority of these here, I believe the Hayward Fault has the most potential there of seeing a rather sooner than later big earthquake on it. Of course, 1906, the San Andreas Fault, right? This was 1868, I believe, since that last big one struck out here on the Hayward Fault. It's got, some big time potential there. Reoccurrence intervals run about every 140 years or so. This is from the Berkeley.education site. Scientists have been studying the past earthquakes on the Hayward Fault. They have found that the most recent 5 major earthquakes happen on average every 140 years. So this article was put out a number of years ago. That's why it says 144 years, but we're past that. You can add, a bunch more years onto it. The point being here is that we are way overdue here for a big earthquake on the Hayward Fault. Calaveras Fault could have some potential as well. The Bay Area just should be on guard here for some larger movement. Get a little nervous here whenever we see any activity stirring up like that. A lot of people say, oh, nothing's going to happen. But one of these times here, it's going to, and these are going to be all the little signs that we needed to look at previous to any big earthquake activity in that region. Southern California, a couple smaller earthquakes down there. This earthquake is, that's on the Parkfield section still. This earthquake coming in the afternoon time period for 2.2. Nothing further overnight, but this area of the plate boundary is also due for a 6-pointer. It's got regular reoccurrence intervals every 20 to 22 years on the Parkfield section. The last one was back in 2004. Not 2024, but 2004, so we're within that time period. And of course, the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault overdue as well. Let's see, a little bit of earthquake activity off of that southern branch this morning. A little 0.7, a little 1.2 yesterday. Nothing big happening down here for now, but as always, we've got to be prepared. Up into the Pacific Northwest, couple earthquakes there around Mount St. Helens today. Looks like they're actually reporting a good handful, so that tells me there that there's some stuff going on. Let's go see what we got here from the... We can go over here to the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network, a little bit better view of the seismograph stations here at Mount St. Helens. We'll check the station up here at the very top and see what we got. Okay, so that wavy line is from that other 6-pointer. There was another 6-pointer that struck in Japan last night. We'll cover that here in a minute. But the earthquake activity looks like it struck here after midnight, about 1 o'clock in the morning, and then about 3 o'clock in the morning. 3:30 in the morning is when that 0.9 struck, which is the largest one. So 3:30 in the morning is going to be this quake right here. That would match that time period. A couple other smaller quakes as mentioned there about 1 o'clock in the morning. See, they're actually picking up on these earthquakes that I've always pointed out. You know, I was like, that's an earthquake. That has to be. Even though they're small, those are earthquakes. So now all of a sudden they are reporting some of them. And as you can see, there's been a couple here that may have not been reported because the last event was a 0.1 at 07:52, which would be this quake right here, that little blue one. But since then, as you can see, a number of other ones here. But it's weird how sometimes they'll report them and then sometimes they won't. You know, and I've been watching these charts here, and there's a bunch from yesterday that never got reported. There's the big earthquakes there in Japan showing up in Washington State. That's the P wave here, and the darker red lines from the 6.8, 6.4, and then the S waves following that in the wavy fashion. So we do have some earthquake activity there, nothing big. Mount Rainier, nothing being reported, but that's another area I do like to keep an eye on because, well, they've had a swarm up there recently, a pretty good one. Back in July and August, and it never really went away. It's tapering off. But as you can see, you know, these lines, if there was nothing happening on them, they should be blank. But that's not the case. There's earthquakes happening on them. Very small ones. Some of those may be some ice quakes up there. I know they've gotten a lot of snow, but those are some earthquakes out there. Nothing being reported. Yellowstone National Park looks like another earthquake up here where that 3-pointer struck. In fact, there's a little swarm going on up there. There's a 3.2 from yesterday. Since then, a number of earthquakes with a total tally here in the last 24 hours, 15 earthquakes. But this area has been getting a little swarming going on across a number of sections here. 51 earthquakes in the last 7 days. A quick glance here at the Yellowstone National Park seismograph station. That one's offline, so we have to go to the most closest one here, which is going to be YMC. There's a 3-pointer from yesterday. A number of earthquakes here are being reported, and there's a couple more in the last couple hours. So, yeah, we got a swarm going on, I would say. Not an intense one. Definitely have seen worse in terms of clusters of, you know, quake activity. But, yeah, I would definitely call that a little swarm. I know these guys showing, 10 earthquakes. They reported only 2 this morning, a 1.2 and a 1.4. Maybe a couple back over here as well. But since midnight, you know, maybe they're just counting these here. But there's a number of them. Definitely a number of them. Nothing big going on. Just some earthquake activity up at Yellowstone. Oil fields still rocking and rolling. Nothing major going on out there across the New Madrid seismic zone. One earthquake down in South Carolina. Did you guys know this is earthquake country down here? Oh, yeah. Back in, when was it? 18-something? Big earthquake struck out here. Big one. And that 1.8 is right in that hazard zone there where a big earthquake has happened historically in the past and will probably happen again in the future. That's literally right directly underneath the North Charleston area. Something like that today would be quite devastating. But these little bitty earthquakes here, a little reminder that the ground can be quite shaky out there. Even though you may think you're safe from California, Yeah, we get most earthquakes. We're along the plate boundary, but these other areas, yes, there's a number of them out here. Even up in New York and Boston area, they can get some big earthquakes. Out in the Atlantic Ocean, finally got a quake out there. It's been a little quiet across the rift boundary, 4.9 there in the last hour. Over here into the Japan region, there's that 6-pointer that stirred up again just right after I went to bed. And a number of earthquakes since then. Looks like the last one going to be a 5.2, but that's just what the USGS is showing. It does look like there's a number of 4s in there as well. That's a lot of uptick going on here, folks, in the last 7 days. One would think, wow, that 6.8 has to be the main quake. But this is the 6.8 is just the main quake so far. Literally the day of and the day before the 6.8 struck, we've seen a number of 4s and 5s. So these were all foreshocks, supposedly. But this is looking eerily similar to, a smaller version of what happened up in the Kamchatka area back in July with that 8.8. Also the smaller version of the 9.1 that struck in 2011 back in this area. Looking like a whole lot of foreshock activity, considering we're seeing more 6-pointers here. I do think something bigger is brewing out here. The magnitudes here have not dropped off completely. We're still seeing some sizable events. We'll watch that area closely for sure, because that's a decent swarm of activity. No movement yet across the Nankai Trench here, but I suspect here that it's definitely getting some strain put on it because of everything that's been happening here. But nothing showing up there from the EMSC or the USGS with regards to earthquake activity along that subduction zone. Newer activity, well, aside from up north here, we got pretty good cluster going on here across the Indonesia area, the Java Trench. Some movement working its way up towards India. Nothing big though. Those are some 3s, maybe a couple 4s in there. New Zealand last earthquake looks like a 3.3 from last night. See Alaska up here, a couple smaller quakes. I don't see anything big popping off. Do have some activity way up north here, literally the top of the planet, north of Greenland. A couple 4s stirring up, so the Atlantic's starting to get busy out here. These are rift boundaries, so if you look here at the general plate stress model, the Atlantic going to be out here. See those arrows pulling apart the plates, pushing the plates further and further apart, creating new oceanic crust. General stress models are the arrows here, the darker arrows indicating where the strain could potentially lead off to. And could see an enhancement here across this area today following that movement down south, or the mid-Atlantic right here. Should pick up things. It looks like it already has, actually. Turkey area swarming like crazy. A bunch of 3s, a bunch of 4s in there. And I do think this is leading to something bigger, folks. I just haven't put my finger on it. And I do think it has something to do with that big swarm that we had out here around the Santorini area, the Colombo volcano, earlier this year. It's very similar to the earthquake sequence that was going on there in just a short distance to the northeast. Something definitely underneath this area that's creating all this earthquake activity. A bunch. This is not just like we had a 6-pointer yesterday. This 6-pointer was a couple months ago, and then we did have another 6-pointer in the last 30 days, but it's just swarming like an unusual high amount of aftershock activity. Something like this it's an eye-opener. Just got to be prepared for whatever is going to take place here. The majority of the activity, about 6 to 9 miles or so underneath this area. And that's a bunch of 4s out there. Those are some decent moderate earthquakes. But when you mix in, a bunch more, just got another event there in the Turkey area as I'm talking about it. See, another 4.8 just came in within the last 5 minutes here. USGS not picking up on that quake yet, but I guarantee you they will. So anyway, some interesting events out here. the Santorini volcano area, just literally down here, a slight distance. And it was swarming similar to what was going on, or what's going on up there in Turkey here in the last couple months. This completely halted, and then it all of a sudden picked up underneath this area. Whatever it is, I guess we will find out. Either way, rocking and rolling out there today in the Turkey region. There's the latest quake of 4.8. Indian Ocean out there pretty quiet. South America, goodness, a bunch of movement happening out here. All the way from the Ecuador area southward. Some decent quake activity stirring up today. No sixes. The largest one looks to be a 5.4 there in the Peru-Chile Trench. There's a super deep earthquake down there underneath Argentina, 132 miles deep for 4.9 early this morning. But we also got some further activity down south here off the tip of South America. Definitely getting some interesting activity out here recently. I look at these models every day, all day, many days, all days of the year for many years. And you know, you can see when there's a lot of interesting, odd earthquake activity. And what's been going on down south here of South America is definitely of interest. Got a lot of movement here off of the plate boundary. And this is just in the last 30 days. We had another 7-pointer a couple months back here. This is actually only showing the 6.3, but we recently did have a 7-pointer here, and then a couple months back another 7-pointer in the same area away from the plate boundary. So some interesting activity taking place out here. Definitely got some movement happening. All right, let's see here. Hawaii, the eruption came to a halt, by the way. It only lasted for about 5 hours yesterday as far as the Kilauea volcano eruption. So no new activity to report on that aside from episode 36 coming to a quick end. Puerto Rico area looks like around the outside the Puerto Rico Trench, a 4-pointer coming in. I do expect, well, I mean, it's already taken place here, some elevated activity following the rift boundary movement here. Space weather activity, can you believe it? We had another long duration X flare, and we're getting slammed right now with protons. The last time we got slammed with protons, we see an elevated earthquake uptick, but it seems as though, you know, that the Japan activity really kicked up following that previous X flare here yesterday. That would have been in the nighttime, not last night, but the night before. And this probably runs about the same time as that other 6-pointer, and all this elevated activity is stirring up right now as far as earthquake activity goes. So X-flare galore. That one looks like it did produce a CME, and of course that sunspot that produced it is directly facing the planet here. So I guarantee you we're going to be active out here as far as the auroras go. But look at that proton event, 99% chance, of course, it's happening right now. These are not auroras, but the ionosphere getting slammed by these charged protons that are shot off from that X flare at the speed of light. Now, this is not going to affect this middle area. Most of the time when it's happening up there, it's going to be affecting the high-frequency communication systems and potentially low-frequency navigation systems. But I don't know to what extent. Either way, that is definitely a decent proton event. Let's see if Kevin's got the flare up here. He's got it on his YouTube channel. There's the full halo CME directly at us. This almost looks like an eyeball over here. I thought it was a glitch here for a second, but that looks like one eye looking at us. You guys see that? It just kind of popped out at me. Maybe I'm seeing things. It is Monday. But anyway, yeah, decent X flare popping off. Let me see. Of course, the SDO, that's offline, so we really can't check that. Is this one up and running? That's the other SDO site. Hopefully the SDO gets their website up and running. I just wanted to see if I could spot that flare activity. Probably not. Yeah, it's already gone down, but it looks like it's already starting to flare back up again. So we're talking about maybe, continued X-flare activity here while that sunspot is currently facing the planet. 4274 is a culprit. I have left my X-flare forecast on the elevated side just because of the way this thing looks. And it's a monster up here. Got a fairly complex area. It does not look like it's dying. I do expect some further X-flare activity before this sunspot departs off there on the western limb. We're really not concerned with anything else, but this one, oh yeah, that's going to potentially spark up some auroras there with the X-flare CME activity that it's shot off. We're already looking at G2 class storm coming up, but when you factor in this other event, I would say that we got an interesting week here of aurora activity to look forward to. I don't see any updated forecasts with this latest one. That will probably come out sometime during the day. But either way, I see Kevin's bumped back up his flare threat. 35% chance there for X-flare, 75% chance there for M-flare. And of course the protons getting slammed out here. Watch for some further earthquake activity on the elevated side. I've been kind of keeping a track here of how space weather activity directly influences, the plates out here, the magnetosphere, and how the magnetosphere reacts to these big events, and how the general plate movement out here, the stresses on the plates tend to, it seems to really kick things up here in earthquake activity. I'm not 100% convinced, but I am keeping a personal total tally sheet or a book because this is going to be more than just a 1 year review. I started this keeping track of the space weather activity for a while, in my head, but just recently here this year in a book, and it's got some interesting connections there where the two are connected. But then again, I've seen events here where earthquake activity happens and there's really hardly anything going on the sun. But maybe, these little kickers tend to help push that earthquake activity to occur. But we got, it's one of those things you just got to watch and monitor and keep data on. But anyway, aurora activity will be elevated here over the next couple nights. Tonight, I don't think we're expecting much. The brunt of all this stuff coming in will be tomorrow forward. And I'll check back. Let me see if they have anything on it yet. This is the Space Weather Prediction Center. Does not look like it's been updated yet. So this is just showing what has recently blasted off the sun. Earth here in the green. We do have, a number of CMEs that were directed. There's the former X-flare. Not this one this morning, but the one from the previous night, giving us a good shot of plasma there. And these are pretty well directly facing the planet. So this is not like going to be a near miss scenario. This would definitely be a direct hit. So I'm pretty confident that we'll see aurora activity stirring up here this week. And protons just getting slammed with that. I know a lot of people can feel that energy there when it kicks up. Me, I feel a little bit energized today, but that's probably because I got some decent sleep and had a good breakfast and whatnot. It's always important. All right, let's check out the next close approach asteroids here to the planet. See if anything is stirring up out there in space aside from the sun. Let's see here. A couple underneath 1 million miles. This one's fairly close. 43-foot house-size asteroid, newly discovered, coming in tomorrow. This one under 1 million miles, but really that's actually a safe distance there. I don't see any super close approaches there for now, folks. Storm Prediction Center, not a whole lot of anything for severe weather at all. There might be some thunderstorm activity, but that's about it. Got a massive cool pole coming in there. Wonder what the temperatures are out there across that area right now. Let's go take a look here. and see how the folks out east of the Rockies are handling this little taste of winter. They're used to it, right? Look at that. That's crazy. 30s for high temperatures. Yeah, it's definitely got some cool air coming down. That will continue to sink south, even towards the Florida area. And you can see that quite nicely here on this model as I put this into motion. Notice those cool lines there bringing that colder air down south. Our next storm system here for the West Coast is coming up late Wednesday into Thursday, Friday. Decent low pressure system here coming into the area. Massive low pressure. And even Southern California is going to get in on some of that rainfall as well. A lot of snow headed up towards the Sierra Nevada mountains. Talking about feet of snow, even down there around Mammoth area. I think they'll get a little bit of snow as well. And there's some more rain behind that. Let's see here. Yeah, look at that. Even down the road there, it shows another system coming into the West Coast. So we do have substantial storm systems coming in with a decent shot for rain for everyone out here. That's a GFS model. The ECMWF model should show the same, if not a little bit better. Let's see here. There we go. That looks nice. It shows a low pressure system a little bit closer here to Northern California, which means the winds could pick up a little bit. Then another system maybe behind that. But yeah, awesome. I'm ready for some more moisture there. That's for sure. Got to keep that rain coming in to the West Coast. All right, folks, keep an eye here on things. Like I say, there's a lot of movement happening. That proton event, I think, is having something to do with this uptick in worldwide activity right now. Turkey, another earthquake coming in at 3.7. They just had a 4.8. And, of course, a bunch of other quakes. So things are on the move, folks. Watch the Bay Area. Watch Japan, the Philippines. Right now, we should be on worldwide earthquake watch because everything is kind of stirring up out here right now. Have a good one. We'll catch you guys out here a little bit later on for the Monday night update, unless something major happens between now and then. Also, by the way, today is Missy Mimi's birthday. I think for the ones that are still watching this video at the end, she would probably really appreciate it if you went to her channel or even leave a comment here. Missy Mimi's, today is her birthday, so I'm going to take her out to dinner here a little bit later. I'm trying to be quiet, just whispering on the microphone here. But yeah, wish her a happy birthday. She'll appreciate it. We'll see you guys out here a little bit later on.